This is the Late Round Podcast with your host, JJ Zacharisa.
What's up, everyone? It's JJ Zacharisa, the editor-in-chief at FanDuel and at NumberFire.com, and this is episode 432 of the Late Round Podcast, one of the many shows that are part of the FanDuel Podcast Network. Thanks for tuning in. The New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles are set to face off on Thursday Night Football, and somehow this game matters, and FanDuel Sportsbook is giving you enhanced odds on the game. New users can place up to a $5 bet and grab either NFC East side at plus 1,500 to beat the other. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook mobile app and make your first deposit to get your enhanced odds today. Must be 21 years or older and present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Colorado, West Virginia, or Indiana. New users only. Must wager on designated boost market. Deposit required. Max bonus $75. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Colorado, call 1-800-522-4700. In West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Or in Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. That's a lot of words. Got through it, though. Let's get to these trends. Drew Lock threw it 15 or more air yards on 45% of his attempts on Sunday. He now has a 33% deep ball rate on the season, which is by far the highest in the NFL. This sort of plays into my buy Jerry Jeudy transaction from yesterday, but I also want to add that I forgot to mention Tim Patrick on the show. He's benefiting from some of the Denver pass-catching injuries right now, with a 29% target share over his last two games. But the fact that Locke is pushing it down the field, that's good for the pass catchers there. Kenyon Drake saw 9.1% of Arizona's targets against Dallas on Monday night. Over his previous three games, his target shares were 3%, 0%, and 3%. A semi-problem in that game was that the Cardinals were really run-heavy and Kyler Murray only completed 9 passes. And the matchup was obviously good. That helped Drake in that contest. But this is why Drake wasn't some clear-cut sell even while you were buying Chase Edmonds. You have to play probability in fantasy football. This is a great example of that. And Drake, at the very least, was providing some rushing volume floor each week. Hopefully the target share numbers can continue so you can have more confidence in Drake week in and week out. Now, speaking of the Cardinals, Christian Kirk had a big game against Dallas as well. But keep in mind that he still only saw 13.6% of Arizona's targets in that contest. On the year, he only has a target share of 12.6%, and he's only hit a 20% share once. I don't think you should necessarily sell Kirk after this performance because they've got a really favorable stretch coming up matchup-wise. But do keep in mind that he's not seeing a huge percentage of his team's targets, and that's going to limit him each week. Trend 4 is that AJ Green has seen 16 deep ball targets this year, or targets that have traveled 15 or more air yards. He's caught one of them for 19 yards. For reference, among the 8 players with 15-plus deep ball targets, none of them have fewer than 8 receptions on those targets. Now, Green did see a really solid 28% target share this past week, so maybe things are going to start trending in the right direction. But he's still the third Bengals pass catcher that I would want in fantasy football, behind Tyler Boyd, who I talked about yesterday, and this guy, who's part of Trend 5. T. Higgins has seen at least 20% of Cincinnati's targets in each of his last 4 games. He's actually just one of 7 wide receivers to hit that threshold in each of the last 4 weeks. Clearly some players had buys and such, but T. Higgins is a stud. I love me some T. Higgins. So keep buying him everywhere and in all formats. Clyde Edwards-Helaire continues to have one of the best backfield shares in all of fantasy football. He's one of 2 backs with at least 75% of his team's running back rushes and a target share above 13%. His numbers, to be more exact, are 79.3% and 14.5%. The only other running back with that type of usage, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I'm bringing this up because of Le'Veon Bell. I do have my worries that Bell's going to take on some of that target share, and that Bell's going to see some of the short yardage and goal line work. That would torpedo CEH's upside. But I do think that we'll still see, at the very least, RB2 production from CEH when Bell's around, especially after Monday night's game. He looked great against the Bills. I would be surprised if he maintained this good of a backfield share, though, even if Andy Reid seems to be downplaying the Bell signing a bit and how it's going to impact CEH. When adjusting for strength of opponent, no quarterback has played under expectation more in terms of fantasy points scored than Daniel Jones. His opponents have allowed 17.5 points per game this year. He scored less than 11 points per game. A lot of people were on Jones this year, and to be completely transparent with you guys, the only reason I wasn't on Jones was because of his opening schedule. Sometimes you get lucky in fantasy football, but he's been bad even when you adjust for that schedule. And by the way, on the flip side of this statistic, Russell Wilson has scored more than 12 points per game over expectation. He's absolutely insane. Trend 8 is that Rob Gronkowski is starting to become a thing. He saw 29.6% of Tampa Bay's targets on Sunday against Green Bay, easily a season high. He's now averaged about an 18% target share per game over his last 4. And keep in mind, a couple of those games have come without O.J. Howard. So it makes sense. There's some logic to this. With the tight end position as bad as it is, Gronk's way more usable right now than we thought that he would be after his start. Every team has run at least 10 plays at the goal line this year. Except the Jets, of course. They've only run 2. They've run 2 goal line plays. This is something that's not uncommon for Adam Gase teams. In 2019, the Jets were dead last in goal line plays with 19. In 2018 with Miami, the Dolphins were dead last with just 10. In 2017, they tied for second to last with 22. And in 2016, they were third to last with 26. Say it with me. Adam Gase is bad for fantasy football. The final trend this week is that over the last 3 weeks, only Joe Mixon, because of his one monster game, and Mike Davis, who's seen awesome usage, have averaged more PPR points per game than Ronald Jones. My stance on Jones has always been that he's fine on the ground, and he's even improved as a rusher this year, in my opinion. But he struggles as a receiver, and that's why I've been off him in fantasy football. I want running backs who catch passes because it's a very important trait. It's very important, especially in PPR formats. Jones, though, over this time, he's averaged over a 13% target share per game. Now, there have been injuries to that backfield, like to Leonard Fournette, but it's looking like the Rojo people are definitely winning the battle of the Tampa Bay backfield right now. We'll have to see how things change when Fournette's back and healthy, but I'd imagine that Jones is still the primary early down guy at the very least. That's going to do it for today's show, though. Thanks to all of you for listening. If you've yet to subscribe to the Late Round Podcast, make sure you are by searching for it pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. And of course, don't forget to follow me on Twitter @LateRoundQB. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow with the weekly matchup show.